The Making of a Terrorist. Today we're going to talk to Kamal Saleem, who is the author of The Blood of Lambs. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Our special guest is Kamal Saleem. Welcome back to Faith and Freedom, Kamal.
It's good to be with you again.
Kamal, we were talking in our first segment of Faith and Freedom about how when you were age 7, you were raised in an Islamic environment, a home. You then were forced to go out to work. On your way to the place where you were working, you got beat up 3 times. You ultimately entered into a mosque. You were beat up very brutally. And those in the mosque took you under their wings. They ultimately came back to all of those people who were beating you, the parents or the perpetrators. And ultimately, because of their authority and the fact that they were not afraid to engage in violence or even die for Allah, that ultimately put a stop to that beating of you. And then as a result of that, and this is where I want to pick up today, you continued to go back to that particular mosque, and it was kind of like a brotherhood. It was the Muslim Brotherhood that they were a part of, but it was also like a brotherhood where they were going to protect you. It was kind of like, if you're not going to be protected here, you're going to go out there in the streets and you're going to be beat up. So this was a place of refuge, a place of protection. How did that ultimately translate into you going to the training camp for terror?
In this place, this is when your family really don't want you, they don't want you, and they don't want to spend time with you. They don't know who you are. All they want you to work. If you don't want to be a family to your children, somebody else will be. And I found my purpose, in life. I didn't have education. I didn't have anything. And now these people took me in. And they were instilling in me the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood, how they're going to infiltrate the world, what they're going to do, and what's the purpose, what is the Great Commission of Islam. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, says in the Great Commission of Islam, he said, "Inni umirtu an uqatil al-shu'ub." I have been commanded by Allah, the God of Islam, to fight the people of the world until everyone says, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. There's no God but Allah, Muhammad is Prophet. And he said, if they don't concede, then their women, their children, their home, their finances, their land, their government, everything they own belong to you as a Muslim. So it's our, our legal inheritance by Allah, and Allah is the higher, God in all and everything. So therefore, this is the commission that was sending us out. And with this, one day, Abu Hamza and Abu Yusuf, they were visiting our mosque. Abu Hamza and Abu Yusuf, they are the right hand and left hand of Yasser Arafat. He's the head of, he was the chairman of the PLO. And when they came to the mosque, they were teaching that day, from Islam, from the Quran and Hadith, which is the Islamic theology. And they were saying, the power of the Islam is not in the word only, it's in the sword as well. This is why you see the sword on the Saudi flag, or you see the 2 swords on the Muslim Brotherhood, flag, which is, it says, wa'audu, and we will come back and take over. And with this, when they spoke that night, they said, the power of Islam is partially in the word, but the majority of it, and the majority of Islam, is in the power, how they subjugate non-Muslim to Islam, and that's by the power of the gun. And so with this, the whole group joined, we went to the PLO camp. It was in Beirut. It's called Camp Sabra. And we went to another camp. It's called Shatila. And we were training in those camps. And I was the first young man. I was the youngest man to enter that camp that day. And the soldier came in, and these soldiers were dressed to kill, and they were trained, and they were just carrying a weapon. And the leader challenged me, and he said, "Child, do you want to be a warrior?" I said, "I am a warrior," because I felt, I was trained to be a warrior from my mother. My mother trained me to be one all alone. And she told me, "You will die for the sake of Allah one day, and you will exalt the name of Allah in Islam. You will die as a martyr, killing other people."
And one of the things that she actually mentioned was Jews, that it would be a high honor for you to kill Jews.
Yes, that's the teaching of Islam as well. She said, "My son, if you kill a Jew, your hand will light up before the throne of Allah, and the host of heaven will celebrate your victory." And as a child, I had a dream one day that I was dressed in a white short. I sat on a white horse. I had two-edged sword in each hand. The enemy of Allah stood before me, the Jews and the Christians. And that day, the armies of Islam were standing, facing the enemy. And I challenged at them, and I started beheading them. And their heads were falling at the feet of Allah. And that day I was martyred, and I rose before the face of Allah, and Allah was laughing hilariously. He was saying, only my crazy Kamal can do such a thing. That was my dream as a child, is to fulfill the will of Allah and to be a blessing to Islam and to Allah and kill the enemy, which is the Christian and Jews.
You have a story, and I want to go beyond. There's so much to go over, but in this training camp, you were actually crawling on your stomach, and you were under some barbed wire or some wire fencing, and they were shooting live ammunition over your head. You're only 7 years old, I believe, at this time, and there's someone who's actually crawling in front of you, also a young boy, maybe a little bit older, but still a young boy, and this individual lifts up his head, and his head, his skull is literally exploded by a bullet, and you see that right in front of you. As a young child at the age of 7, this has to have an incredible impact on you at such a young age.
It was the first reality to me that what I was doing as a child, that this is not a life situation. That's what you're going to do someday. You're going to die in the same manner. And he was my good friend, and we always raced to see who's going to be the first. And when the 50 caliber, what we were training to do is to go under the barbed wire and take the tank, minefield, and take the bombs from underground, find them and release them. What he did, he went over the minefield, and what happened, the 50 caliber, he peeked over the wires, and a 50 caliber bullet took took the rest of his head off, and he was just no more with me. I still remember that day when he sat down, when he laid down and he did not move. And it was, the reality is this could be you next time or anyone else. If not by training, it's going to happen to you on the field when you go out to do the same mission.
Now, going beyond this, as you're continuing to train, as a young boy, one of the things that you did was you actually smuggled weapons into Israel to some of the people who were with the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And you were part of a group that actually, I believe, went from Syria to an underground tunnel into Israel. And as you're coming out the other side of the tunnel, the Israeli soldiers find out what you're doing, and they start shooting. Some of your other young friends, and you're just a young boy still, are killed and cut down right in front of your eyes. And yet what you're trying to do is actually smuggle these destructive weapons into Israel so that the PLO can kill Jews in Israel.
Yes. You see, in Islam, child soldier are very permitted. To allow the children to die for the sake of the cause, or women, or whatever it may be, whatever it takes, just for the soldier to succeed in their mission. That's totally allowed in Islam. Because you're not an adult, until you become a warrior, and at that level, you are fighting for Islam and what so have you. But nevertheless, I was carrying weapon caches, yes, like you said, and we were dressed like Bedouin. Hafiz al-Assad, the father of Bashar al-Assad, currently president of Syria, he was the head of a special group called Al-Sa'iqa, which is the Syrian PLO, faction, and what we're doing is he was helping our, plan to excel and exceed, and we were going through the Golan Heights to take those weapon caches. The first mission was very, very successful.
And Kamal, we're going to have to hold that thought right there as we come back to our program tomorrow, and I want to pick that up. But then I also want to talk about what is happening here in America, some of the other things that you encountered. And I think the best way to understand the threat that we face here in America and around the world to Islam, or from Islam, is by reading the book that you wrote called The Blood of Lambs. I encourage people to get the book. You can go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, lc.org, to ask for The Blood of the Lambs, or you can go to koomministries.com. That's Koome Ministries.com. We'll be back tomorrow.